Hello and welcome to We Love Hitchin Interviews 2024. My name is Matt Porter and I am the founder of the Facebook group We Love Hitchin, which has been a vibrant community space for the past 9 years with a membership approaching 30,000 members. We're thrilled to be hosting today's event at the Workshop Hitchin. A big thank you goes out to James and the guys here for their generous support, providing the wonderful space for our interview. The workshop caters for all kinds of small businesses, from one-man bands wanting a desk for a day or a co-working space through to businesses requiring their own office. Visit workshophitchin.com for more information. Over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be speaking with candidates running for the Hitchin Constituency in the upcoming general election to learn more about their platforms, visions for the community, and plans to address key issues that matter to us most. Many of the questions you will hear tonight have been drawn from a recent ONS survey of the key things people worry about most. So let's get started. Joining me today is Charles Bunker from Reform UK. Welcome, Charles, and thank you for being here.
Matt, thank you for having me.
Let's start by getting to know a little bit more about you. Could you tell me about your background and what motivated you to run for election?
Right, well, Matt, I've lived in Hitchin since I was 5 years old. So this is my hometown. And for the last couple of years, I have been thinking about, and I've realised that I could not support either of the main parties. I could not vote for the Conservative Party, and I could not vote for the Labour Party. And therefore, I was homeless, politically homeless. So I looked around at the SDP and I liked a lot about what they were saying. And then I looked at Reform UK and I did stand for the Brexit Party in 2019 in Bedford. But that was a specific issue. It was about making sure that Brexit was delivered. And I thought that was my politics over. But genuinely, I couldn't go to the ballot box and vote for any party. And I think it's a civic duty. So I'm standing for that reason, that if I can't vote for anybody else, I damn well better vote for myself. And so I want to encourage other people to vote for me too.
Excellent.
But that doesn't answer why am I standing. So that's I can't vote for anybody else. But there's three main things that we need to really talk about. Two other main things. One is that the effect of mass immigration on this country. In the last 2 years, we've had 1.3 million people come into this country. Since Bimapalami was elected, we've had 3.18 million. Let's remember that he was elected on the basis of only having tens of thousands. He's brought in 3.18 million people. We cannot possibly provide the houses. We cannot provide the schools. We cannot provide the infrastructure if mass immigration is going to continue at this rate. And so that's one of the reasons that I've joined Reform UK, because we really, really have to get control of legal immigration as much as illegal immigration. We've had 100,000 illegal immigrants. Last year, just before this election, the government went into the market to rent 26,000 houses to house 50,000 illegal immigrants. Just think what that did to the housing market, right? Inflation up till January, whatever it was last year, for electricity, housing, was running at 26-point-something%. Now that is staggering inflation. That is a lack of control of our economy. And that is devastating for people. So we've got a major problem with immigration, and it has to be brought down to virtually diddly squat. But we've also got a serious problem with what I call broken Britain. We remember the Winkler scandal. We're watching what's going on with the post office scandal. We're watching the blood scandal. The scandal after scandal. And we're about to have another scandal breaking. Because I've just been reading about men in arrears, I think actually maybe men and women, in arrears at the child maintenance service are 14 times more likely to commit suicide. Right? That is a sign of broken Britain. Now, sorry, Matt, I'm going to keep you giving me a head of steam, so I'm going to keep talking for a second. I was on the high street on the day, the Saturday after the election was called.
Yeah.
Right? People were talking to me about housing. They were talking to me about the NHS. And when I got home that night, on Saturday evening, what did I find the major leaders talking about? One was talking about votes for 16-year-olds, and the other was talking about national service for 17-year-olds. I must be living in stark raving bonkers land if they think that that's what's important to the people of Hitchin. So why am I standing? Because there's a damn need to make sure that some common sense is talked about.
Right.
Does that help you?
Yeah, that's fantastic. Good. Thank you very much for that. Let's dive into some key issues. So, having reviewed the ONS survey of what worries people, you've touched on it just now, really, where people are worried about housing and things like that. The number one problem that people feel they're facing at the moment, so our first question really is about the cost of living crisis. Many families in Hitchin are struggling with the rising cost of living. Food prices seem to be rising at alarming rates, whilst we're being told inflation is now under control. What specific measures would you propose that could help alleviate those financial pressures?
Well, the first thing to do is sack the government, right? Because who is responsible? Well, I'd sack the government and I'd sack the Bank of England. Oh, goodness gracious me. We have a Labour candidate who worked for the Bank of England. What on? Let me get this right. Climate change, reinsurance, regulation. Right? Now, this is the Bank of England that pumped money into the economy. Let's remember in 2007, it bankrupted us when it had failed to regulate mortgage lending. It now had these LDIs, these derivative investments, right, which brought down, I've forgotten what her name, who was the Conservative woman that lasted only 40 days or something? Remember her name?
Liz Truss.
Liz Truss, right? The Bank of England were responsible for bringing down her government through their incompetence. So the Bank of England has to be changed immediately. And then who do we have? Oh, we have the Financial Secretary to the Treasury that has printed so much money, thrown it into the economy, right, that it has caused hyperinflation. So let's put the blame where it seriously lies. It lies in the Bank of England, a quango, and it lies in this government. Now, what can we do about it? What can I do about it?
Yes. How can you...
Right, I'll tell you what we do. Number one, we increase the single person's allowance to £20,000.
Right.
Okay, that means that it makes it more efficient to get into work. So you're going to keep more of what you're going to earn. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to do a lot in terms of the cost of your living, like taking 20 pence off the price of a litre of fuel, getting rid of the subsidies on energy. The amount of extra costs that we are paying through the green energy subsidy is phenomenal. So we can cut the cost of living by reducing the amount of taxes and charges and surcharges in those areas, which will go directly.
And you will be, that is not, so that's going to be reduce the tax burden on people. So by pulling that money from schemes which you believe are wasteful.
We've got a whole host of, look, let's just take one, our dear friend, the Bank of England. The Bank of England, so the Bank of England's printed money. This money's gone out into the banks, the NatWest, the Barclays, and it sits on their balance sheet, and they lend it back to the Bank of England. The Bank of England is paying interest on that, right, at 35 billion a year. It doesn't have to. Now, where's that money? It's going into those banks, and it's going out to their shareholders. Somebody has got to be stark raving bonkers, Matt, if they think that's a good idea. That's 35 billion. I can say just by walking into number 11 Downing Street.
So do you think that model worked well whilst interest rates were zero, or the cost of borrowing was very low. But now that it's not, it's now rearing its ugly head.
Interest rates, okay, we're getting into interest rates have been too low for too long. I'm really sorry about it, because if you look at what the interest rates, the cost of borrowing by this government is the third most expensive item on its line item of expenditure. So low interest rates are really important so that we have we can spend more, and that means getting inflation down to getting inflation really down, because otherwise the pound is just being devalued. If you're a pensioner,
yes,
your wealth is being destroyed,
yes,
if it's in the bank account. So there we are. What else do you want to say?
Thank you very much for that. Thank you. We'll move on to the next question, which is NHS and healthcare.
Oh yeah.
85% of people are concerned about the NHS.
Yeah.
What are your plans to improve healthcare services, reduce waiting times, and address staffing shortages?
Right. Not many of your listeners, watchers will know this, but for 9 years, something like, I was a 2-term non-executive director of the Q2 in Welwyn Garden City. When we moved in, that was a failing trust. Over a period of 5 years, we were there, we were able to have a 25% increase in finished consultant episodes for a 5% real term increase in. So I've sat on a board that has performed in the NHS. Now, we are in a complete and utter mess. I went to hospital a few months ago. I was left lying on the floor, vomiting into a cardboard bowl because nobody could look after me. So we have a real problem. And let us just think about that problem for a moment. We have, as our Chancellor of the Exchequer, a former health minister who was also a health minister, he was also sat on the Select Committee of Health. We haven't got in this country, we've only just got a manpower plan for the NHS. You've got to be in the negligent go to jail if you're running a business of that size without a manpower plan. So that's my beat. So
what am I going to do? One of the biggest employers
doesn't have a manpower plan.
Yeah.
And then it does. So what are we going to do? The first thing is you've got to rebuild some kind of morale in our NHS. The doctors and nurses are feeling absolutely battered to pieces. One of the things we're going to do is make zero rate, make the first rate of tax up to £20,000 tax free for them for three years. Mm-hmm. All right, that's what the first thing. We're going to make sure that if they're training with us, if they're qualified, then over the 10 years their loans are written off. Somebody tell me how on earth they thought it was a good idea to having. I'm of a background of apprenticeships and training contracts. You tell me when it was a good idea to make nurses to have student loans in order to train as a nurse. It's just going to drive them away from the market. Why would you do that? Start raving bonkers as a policy. So no, we'll waive off the loans. Another key point, which won't be often mentioned, but student loans, we're going to make zero rated. So those people that aren't getting on the housing ladder and because they're earning less than 60,000 a year, interest rate, their debt's accumulating. Why?
I believe that student loans initially were.
They were down at 2% or something ridiculously low. Mm. Now they're a phenomenal rate. Yeah. So Reform's policy is zero interest rates on student loans. Now, sorry, can I just do my last point on hospitals, because we've got a lot to cover. We've been talking in Reform, Hertfordshire. We're about 1.2 million people. We've got 2 DGHs. one in Watford, suffering the same problems as the one in that we've got here in Lister. I was very vocal in opposing the shutting down of the QE2 as a DGH in Welwyn Garden City.
Can you explain what a DGH is?
A District General Hospital.
Okay,
so
thank you.
It's the one with an acute unit where an ambulance turns up when you're in serious.
Understand, yeah.
Right. Okay. The Labour Party decided that there was going to be only 2 DGHs in Hertfordshire, and they decided that they were going to go in Stevenage and they were going to go in Watford for political reasons, not health reasons, for political reasons. Then they were constituencies that had the best chances of voting Labour. Right? So that makes these people, well, we won't go there. So we've got only 2 DGHs in Hertfordshire for 1.2 million people, and we should have 3. So one of the plans that the Hertfordshire Reform Group have got behind is that we need a brand new teaching hospital in Hatfield. The original plan was to put a new hospital in Hatfield. Hatfield will serve diagonally east-west across from Hemel through St Albans down to Hertford, right? It's an ideal place to build a new Addenbrooke's there, all the way around. So that's one of the things that we are working to and committed towards.
And do you think that that's sustainable? That sort of sounds like an amazing forward-thinking plan. Is it sustainable?
I'll ask you, well, you're going to answer the same. So if I have 1.4 million people coming in 2 years, now, I didn't mention this, under the Office of National Statistics, they are talking about in the next 12 years, Office of National Statistics, we are going to have 6.6 million increase in our population over 12 years. 500,000 of that are going to be born here. 6.1 million people are going to come in from overseas. Are you going to tell me if that's the government's plan, the Labour Party, Conservative Party plan, we can afford not to build such a hospital? Our problem is that we're getting people in and we don't have the infrastructure to look after them. So no, I'm afraid it's absolute common sense that we commit to that now in order to balance the economy.
And which actually brings us on to the next question, which is the economy. The broader economic situation is a concern for 68% of the population. So what strategies do you have to address inflation, unemployment, economy?
Well, we've talked about inflation.
Yeah.
We don't have an unemployment problem, right? We have 5.1 million people of working age not in work. What we have is we have a situation where it's not worth people going to work, and that's a real problem. I don't know why it's so many. It's a number of post-COVID issues, but if we've got 5.1 million people of working age in work, we need to get them back to work. So we need to make it more profitable for them to go to work. And one of the things we do that is I sound like I'm a repeating record, but we stop immigration, because I don't know whether you're aware of this, but it's now very clear that what happens from inflation is that we're bringing in cheap labour, and what that is doing is it's reducing our GDP per capita, right? Now, there's everything that, the nutters in the Treasury will keep on going on about. We've got to have economic growth. We've got to have economic growth. We get economic growth by having more people. The thing is, you have more people, right? But if the economic growth is not as fast as you're expanding your population, you're all becoming poorer, right? So let's get rid of the low-paid, low-skilled work, and let's skill up and let's make the population. San Francisco is what if you take San Francisco as a nation, it's the 7th most wealthy country.
Right.
How's it done it? It's done it through technology. It's done it through its skills of its people. Actually, it's losing all its skills to Texas, of course, because it's gone socialist.
I think that there is an issue as someone that is from a technological background for the last 37 years.
Yeah.
I can see that there is an issue with training people correctly for the society we now live in and the jobs that produces, where we are left in many cases without any choice but to import workers from other places to do those jobs because they are in some cases more qualified, have better education.
That's the cheap option. Okay, I trained as a chartered accountant. What did we do as a chartered accountants? We took people in and we trained them. We paid them a salary and we trained them. We committed, it was a 5-year training contract, 4-year training contract. We committed to people, right, in order that they were the next generation of the profession. What we're doing is people are not taking responsibility for training the next. We need to have more apprenticeships, more work training, and fewer no-jobologies from universities in.
You know, I'm quite proud to say that I actually was a YTS trainee from the 80s.
Yeah.
It was appalling pay, but it did also give me a relevant education for the skills that I needed at that time.
And it's not a long-term. Okay, it takes 15 years to train a doctor through to sort of consultant level. But a lot of these jobs we can train very quickly and skillfully. And so we have to have a change of attitude here. We have to stop large companies employing cheap labor because it's easy for them, right? We need to have a society that invests in its people.
Okay. We'll move on to question 4, which is I'm sure going to please you no end, which is climate change and the environment.
Oh God, which is where I lose all my votes.
61% of the population are concerned about climate change. So with the growing awareness and concern around climate change, what measures do you propose to promote environmental sustainability in Hitchin? So how can Hitchin become environmentally sustainable?
Let's break away from environment, please. I need to separate environment from climate change because I need to take you through. So I understand CO2 and what it does. I've seen the technology. But in 2010, I was doing a large project in was the world able to feed itself? One of the conclusions that project came to was in 2010, yes, the world could feed itself in 2050 provided capital went into the market and water was available. The two issues. And in our report, we mentioned the 4th IPCC guidelines about water receding in the Himalayas. It wasn't. It was a complete and utter falsification in the 4th IPCC report. Then what happened? You come to CREW, the Climate Change Research Unit at Norwich, East Anglia University. They produced a whole load of dodgy data. So I start with Michael Mann and his hockey stick graph. And slowly, I do not believe that the case for climate change science is a proven science. For me to watch Professor Brian Cox throw a piece of paper across a studio and say the science is settled, I don't think it is. So I've lost half the votes of Hitchin. However, let's just assume we have to work on the best basis possible. Let's work on trying to achieve what we want as net zero. Okay? You're absolutely in cloud cuckoo land. I need to just look at my notes to remind me who it was.
Yep.
But it was a guy called, what was his name? So he was a guy from Cambridge University who ran the putative, it must be under N for net zero.
That's right.
He ran no, Michael Kelly, Professor of Technology at Cambridge University. Okay? Mm-hmm. And he wrote a report saying that he imagined that he would have been appointed the project manager by the government to run a net zero over 30 years. And so he concluded this. It was going to cost 3 trillion. It was going to take the workforce 70% of the size of the NHS to deliver it. It was going to require a doubling of electrical engineers. The grid had to be 2.7 times the size it is at the moment. But here were the interesting things. It was going to need 2008 tons of cobalt. Right? That's 2 times the annual output of cobalt. It was going to take 260 tons of lithium carbonate. That's 0.75% of global product. And then we go on to tons of copper, rare earths. Right? It's not deliverable. Okay? Now, I'm really sorry, but somebody's got to tell the truth about this. So, number one is you have got to be damn certain that climate change is going to do the damage it's doing. And I'm not damn certain, and I don't think the rest of the world should be. Let's just take this one statistic, Matt. Right? That 98% of all scientists think that climate change. Well, let's look at that 98%. How was it made? It was made up of 12,000 reports, 12,000, couple of hundred reports. Okay? 4,000 of those said that climate change was absolutely bang on. 8,000 said we don't know. A couple of hundred said no, it was not a case to answer. They ignored the 8,000 that didn't know and then came up with 98%. Well, if people are lying to us like that, I have to start questioning what's happening.
So do you believe that the freak weather events that we've been experiencing over the last short number of years, where we've had astronomical flooding in countries, where we've had the hottest temperatures ever recorded in the UK, do you think that is literally what I've said, a freak event, or do you think it's just natural weather?
You are measuring it over too short a period to possibly know. Tell me, why isn't Dubai underwater? Look at the coastline of Dubai over the last 20 years. Don't know, right? But let me tell you this. You've got to be damn certain that you want everybody in this country to be poorer, to be locked into 15-minute cities. You've got to be damn certain that you don't want this country producing the food it wants. You want to be damn certain that you're going to close down Port Talbot at stopping us making genuine steel that we need for the defense of this country. You've got to be damn certain, and I don't think anybody is. So I think you've got to be very careful.
I think that you've been very succinct in explaining your view on that. So I think we will move on to the next one. Thank you for your input there. Question 5, crime. 59% of people are worried about crime. Crime remains a major concern for people. What are your plans to improve personal safety and the effectiveness of law enforcement in our community?
40,000 extra policemen committed in our and an investment in the criminal justice system. But it's a matter of trying to persuade. We've got to stop a 2-tier policing system that is upsetting the police at the moment. They can see what's happening. They're bitterly upset. Why is it that Charlie Gilmore, the Pink Floyd drummer, Gilmore, I can't remember his name. Dave Gilmore's son, gets 18 months inside for swinging from the cenotaph on a flag, and yet Palestinian flags are put all around the cenotaph, and we have to protect Winston Churchill's statue, right? The 2-tier policing. And so when you see two-tier policing, when you see policemen having their jaws broken and people not being sent to jail, right? When you see knife crime at the extent to which knife crime is taking on at the moment, right? It's not just about policing, it's about having a criminal justice system.
So you believe that the criminal justice system needs overhauling completely?
It needs to be made effective. And it can be made effective, but that is about making sure the courts work effectively and we have a prison system that is effective. And I listened to Rory Stewart about the state of the prison system, and I think it's seriously worrying about how filthy, dirty it is, the control that the prisoners are taking. So it's a matter of, but a lot of this is about leadership. It's about determination. It's about leadership. And I don't see the Met Police actually putting a lot of leadership in at the moment.
Fair enough. So how do you envisage working with the local, should you be elected? Will you be working with the local police and crime commissioners?
Yeah.
Do you think that you'll be able to work with these? Yeah. Do you think that the police and crime commissioner as a political position or is a good thing? Do you think that was a mistake to do that, to politicise it?
Well, it was politicised in the first place. You have to remember that the committee used to be run by the county council, so it had a very big political input.
Right.
I'm not sure that it has. I'm not sure it's been the value for money that we expected it to be.
If you were to be elected and you were dealing with it's very confusing, the boundaries really, the Bedfordshire side of Hitchin.
Yeah.
I've forgotten the word.
Yeah.
The Hitchin Constituency.
Yeah.
You'd be working with a Labour police and crime commissioner.
Do you know what?
Do you see there being boundaries there, or
do you know what? No, because we're two adults wanting to serve our community, serving the same common problem. If politics are getting into looking after the people we're representing, then it's a really, really sad day. You've got to have grown-ups in the room.
Okay.
And I'm certain that my colleagues will be grown-ups in the room. So.
Okay. Thank you for that. Question 6. We're moving on swiftly now.
How are we doing for time?
We're doing all right. As long as you're okay for time.
Yeah.
Housing.
Yes.
Housing affordability and availability are significant issues.
Yes.
In Hitchin specifically, but also the outlying areas which are also covered. What measures will you take to address the housing crisis? I think you might have touched on a few things previously, particularly for younger people and those on lower incomes. So I think it was mentioned the other night that you're in your late 30s before you actually get your first home now, because it takes so long to save towards that goal. Whereas for my generation, I was 23 when I had my first home. So what do you think needs to happen?
Build more homes.
Right.
Okay.
Affordable homes?
But look, I think it was 1967, something like that, when it was the last time we built nearly 500,000 homes, of which 190,000 were social housing, built by the council.
Yes.
Right? So why aren't councils building more homes? Right? We can do it. So let me give you my background. I've built my own house.
Right.
Right? Nightmare. But I built a house. Okay? Designed it. But also I have raised money for house builders. I've floated house building companies on the stock market. I understand house building. Mm-hmm. Okay? I don't think my opponents understand house building. They've not had to worry about getting planning permission and God knows what else. So I understand it. You've got somebody who really understands. Okay. So what there is land already sitting there with planning permission. The large house builders are not building these houses because they're not building houses because there's a monopoly. You do this 700 this year, and I'll do my 700 3 years out, and they're working together to keep that the land prices high. They're not investing in the infrastructure, so it's very simple. If you've got planning permission on some land and it's not being built upon, the council can compulsorily purchase it and they can build on it themselves. Now, it's not an easy fix because we don't have the skills in the country to build that number of houses that we need. So of this 5.1 million people, right, let's train some of those to build some houses pretty damn quickly. The second thing is that you used to do small housing developments with developers who used to do a joint venture with funders, so that they would buy a site for maybe 20, 30, 40 houses. Somebody would put up the money, they would do the building, and they would split the profits 50-50, right? Those have stopped happening. The capital has dried up for those. So you don't get small developments in small towns, small villages.
What you end up with, and I'm personally experienced it myself, is that you have a situation where the price of raw materials went up so quickly that the main contractors started going bust and then having to be replaced by others, and it was a struggle to find people to come in and finish those jobs. Because again, increasing prices. In this case,
what happened?
It was COVID.
It was COVID,
and from there on, supply chain
and COVID is a classic example. What we run in this country is a just-in-time, right, system.
Correct. Yeah.
Now, let me just talk about one issue about the rough storage field, right? Ofgem sit there and say, British Gas goes to Ofgem and say, we're going to shut down Rough unless you pay 750 million to keep it alive. I think that's the figure. And Ofgem said, no. So British Gas shut it. I said, Ofgem said, well, what about supply? And they said, we're going to be all right. We've got super tankers and that's our storage. Dear old Putin marches into Ukraine and we need Rough. Who is sitting on Ofgem, sitting there telling British Gas, for God's sake, you've got to keep Rough alive. It's your job. It's part of your profits. 900. Well, they did make 98 million in 1 year and 968 million the following year. So they got the ability. It's part of the strategic reserves that they look after. But that's getting off the subject of house building.
Well, it is slightly, but is the solution renationalising those industries to stop that reliance on paying shareholders and serving the people?
There's never one right answer. So
we'll leave.
I know you're coming to. No, let's jump ahead with the water company. The question, right? Water is a disgrace, right? How on earth we've got a worse situation in water and rivers in this country than when it was privatized is beyond belief. So what do? Nationalize them? I'm not paying a penny. If they go bust, they go bust. The shareholders and the bondholders, they lose their money. That's what capitalism is. Okay? Tough luck. We don't give you any compensation. We can keep the water supplies going, so nobody's at risk. Before we do that, why don't we fine the water companies with shares? You're just being fined a few hundred million. Thank you very much. I'll have it with shares. You've just allowed shit to pour into this river. Here's a 5 million fine. Right? Very slowly, by fine, the equity goes and it comes into public ownership. So I think for some of these people, they need Thames Water, allow them to go bust. Others, Severn Trent, disgraceful operators, we need to just keep finding them until they're in public ownership, right? It's not until capitalism works and people suffer the pain of their negligence are we going to get things to work. And last point is Ofgem, Ofwat, they all need to be revolutionised because they haven't done the job of protecting us, the consumer.
Yes, I think that's a very valid point. So what about roads?
What do you want me to do about roads?
Let's talk about roads.
No money for roads.
How do we improve the appalling state of the roads where, in particular, potholes are hazard to drivers and pedestrians? You drive anywhere now, there's potholes apparently everywhere. Where I work regularly, there were potholes that were just growing and growing and growing, and nobody was taking responsibility for them. So what can we do to improve the infrastructure? Is it lack of investment over the years, or what do we need to do?
I don't know what we do about potholes, right? It's easy to say, well, we just give more money to the county councils and county councils should go out and fix it. You know, the government's given more money to the councils and the potholes are still there. What I do know is that we can no longer have the A1M Stevenage bypass 2 lanes blocking up the whole artillery to the north and the south. And, you know, why on earth, you know, we've got 4 lanes going north at Peterborough, right? And I've got 2 lanes here, one of which has now been closed for days on end and queues going back for miles. No, we have, you know, Hertfordshire is a dynamic county, right? The A1M at that point should be 3 lanes and not some stupid smart motorway that's going to kill people, right? I'm absolutely emphatically against smart motorways.
Yeah.
You drive from Luton north on the A1M. That's just a death trap. So no to smart motorways, and that needs to be a proper 3-lane carriageway. And we've paid enough in road fund tax to damn well have it here in Hertfordshire.
Okay.
Is that enough?
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. Community questions, we did touch, you've already detailed. Andrea, one of our members, very kindly submitted a question relating to should we, if there was a vote in Parliament, to bring the water companies back into the public sector, would you vote yes or no for it?
I don't see it being that binary.
No.
Right? I think I've explained.
Yeah.
There's more that if they're going bust, let them go bust.
Yeah.
Right? No government money. And if they're messing up, I just keep confiscating their shares.
Fine them shares.
But not in money. Money doesn't do any good. Right? It just gets piled onto us. Take away their shares, take away their ownership.
Okay, yeah. Martin, another member, thank you. He's asked AI.
Yeah.
Should we be worried?
Yes.
And how should it be kept safe?
We should be worried, and we should be excited at the same time. And we have to keep an eye on the development of this space. I'm naturally one who is cautious about regulation. I think there's not enough talented people who understand how this technology is working. We can see what's happened in the way that algorithms have been played with on Facebook, on Twitter, and others. So this is a very, very delicate issue. But to regulate something that could see a dramatic improvement in our quality of life, in things like the discovery of drugs, and improvement I think we have to be very, very, very careful about
diagnosis of disease by looking at historical, by training an AI on historical X-rays and then having it be able to see something that maybe a doctor
but also understanding the genome. We are just at the early stages of understanding what's the human genome. We don't know I don't know what percentages, but a huge percentage we don't understand what it does.
And you think, you hope that AI can assist us with those discoveries and moving it forward quickly.
Yeah. And so, you've got to be both optimistic and concerned at both the same time.
Thank you for that. Nyland and Lauren have asked similar questions. Should we be providing arms or assistance in the Gaza War, and should we be recognising Palestine as an independent state? I've tried not to be too divisive in these interviews, but this is a touchy subject, I think.
Right.
But I think that there were a couple of questions, and I've kind of merged them into one. But it was really about should we feel complicit in the death of innocent people by supplying or supporting Israel or anyone else in that regard that ends up killing people?
This is a tragedy. 1968, I remember the war. I was 15 years old, and it's been a constant problem since then. And we have to realize, I think that we have to understand that Israel and Jews have a right to live in peace. How that is secured for them, I find very difficult. I find it exceptionally uncomfortable that Israel has killed what is reported to be 20,000 innocent people. But you were interviewing me today on D-Day, 6th of June, the 80th anniversary. And therefore, one needs to understand that the Americans, the Allies, killed 60,000 innocent French people in order that we could win the Battle of Normandy and defeat totalitarian Germany. Was a decision that we made to kill our allies, right, and not our enemy. So I think we have to be very, very, very careful about condemning Israel. So Israel has a right to live in peace, and I saw the actions of Hamas, and I condemn it 100%. What is the solution? Tolerance. We try and find tolerance. Tolerance is not being found in Netanyahu and his government. You can already see that Netanyahu's security minister and finance minister are against Biden's peace plan. Something has to be done. I think the Israeli people will be removing Netanyahu before too long. But it's going to take tolerance on both sides. But I don't think anyone who has seen those videos of the deaths and the rapes and the killing of children is ever going to forget what they saw and say that Hamas behaved atrociously. So I'm sorry, I don't know the answer.
No.
But I don't think anybody knows the answer. But let me begin. I would like to be able to support the Palestinian people with aid. I'd like that aid not to go to Hamas, to go through directly, because I find the humanitarian issues in Palestine very upsetting.
Right. Well, thank you very much for that. Very interesting, thank you. Jeremy, completely changing. Jeremy is a member as well, he has asked, what are your policies regarding digital currencies and the ability to effectively spend without taxation? And should the UK adapt its central bank to support a digital currency version of pound sterling? It's a complex question.
Right. Okay. So you can't discuss digital currency without discussing digital ID. Okay? because one day, if digital currency gets merged with digital ID, then we've got a social credit system that you've got in China, and freedom has gone. Now, I am beginning to think, I've been a real Luddite in this, but I am beginning to think that we have to come to a point of a digital ID. I cannot remember the number. I think I've got it here on the NHS. It is a staggering statistic. We've got there are registered on the NHS 62.9 million patients. But we've only got, that's England and Wales, we've only got 57.1 million people. Right? So here is a fundamental mismatch, right? Of 12 million. Something is, it's just a 5 million. Yeah. But now, so, and every element of our lives, we're suffering like mad from fraud in every aspect. So I'm becoming to think that digital ID, on ID, is an important part.
Okay.
I am very nervous, therefore, about having a digital currency. I can see the Bank of England deliberately trying to destroy our fiat currency at the moment by hyperinflation. So I would say no to a digital currency. And let's not remember, it's not the tax about spending, it's also the income tax that is being hidden. With Bitcoin and everything else.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I think that's
the income.
what
Yeah,
he's talking about.
Yeah, it is at the
untraceable.
Moment. It's untraceable. Well, no, it is traceable. That's the one thing that you can't do with cash. So one day somebody, the HMRC,
it's not traceable to the individual without knowing
because of blockchain, the way blockchain works, you know where every single element of that digital currency has gone through, whose hands it's gone through,
right?
Which actually, if the Inland Revenue get hold of your blockchain, right, they'll know what you've received and what you've had and how much they're going to tax you. So, okay, is that a clear answer?
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Not much left now. Okay. Vanessa and Nicola have asked a question, which is close to my own heart. Currently, children with special needs are being failed. There is not enough provision or indeed funding necessary to ensure special educational needs families get the support they need, not only in education, such as lack of space or appropriate pupil to carer ratios, but also in social care and the availability of agency staff, or even respite for parents who are exhausted, alone, and in many cases completely alone. What can you pledge today, or what can you suggest today, which will provide support and hope for the many cases desperate families for the most desperate families and carers of the most vulnerable in our society? In many cases, people without a voice of their own, who rely on representatives in Parliament to speak for them.
Yeah, well, you and I have spoken about this beforehand, and I think you know how passionate I am for separate reasons that I don't want to go into.
Of course.
But what's happening at the moment is a disgrace. It's an embarrassment. I've met parents, while I've been on the campaign trail, I've met parents who are not being provided with proper incontinence pads for their children, having to spend hundreds of pounds a month on looking after them. No. Okay, we are going to fund it properly, and the county councils who are responsible for this need to damn well do the job properly, which comes to my next point, which I haven't covered so far, and that is that having a huge county council for Hertfordshire and a load of small district councils, and that we need 2 unitary authorities, one in the east, one in the west, and they need to they can work together on things like adoption services, because you need to work across boundary, and they need to work together. but no, we need this operation to become more efficient, more accountable, right? And the money has to be provided. So these, I have no. Can I just something else that we've not touched upon? I mentioned Broken Britain to you.
Yes.
I mentioned Windrush. I mentioned the Grenfell Tower, the post office scandal. We need and I've written about this on a Substack. It really came through the number of children's deaths that are happening through failure in children's services. We have Victoria Climby. We have them inquiry after inquiry after inquiry. Nothing is going to get right in our civil service until we get a proper law of misconduct in public office.
Right.
Misconduct in public office is currently a common law. It's out of date, and at the moment it catches the little person. You know, I'm sorry, I don't mean to belittle them, but it catches the Bobby bonking his girlfriend in the back of a police car. Mm-hmm. It doesn't get the people who are sitting at the top of the tree, like the man who, when he was told that the claddings that he were approving for Grenfell Tower cladding, turned round and said, "I'll alter the law when you show me the bodies. I'll alter the law when you show me the bodies." Mm. And a guy turned to him and said, "I've shown you the bodies. They're at Lucknow House, where people had died in a fire." We have to have a proper law of misconduct in public office. And then we can start protecting our vulnerable. We can start protecting our children. Yeah. We can start protecting the 2,000 girls that were raped under Islamic grooming gangs. There's a fundamental failure in our system of government, and we need that law to.
Okay.
Serious subject, Lyndon.
No, thank you very much for that.
Is there anything else?
That is finally we've got a couple of Reform UK specific questions, and then we're done.
Oh, heaven help me.
Okay, the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Nigel is back.
Yeah.
Is this just yet another example of political flip-flopping?
Well, it is.
Because he told us he wasn't going to.
Yeah.
And now he has decided he is, and he can obviously change his mind. He's perfectly.
I think it was the great economist Keynes who turned around and said, "Well, when the facts change, I change my mind." I think that Nigel saw the change in the mood in the country, and it is. I assure you, there is a change in the mood, and I think when he saw the change in the mood in the country of there's got to be an alternative. We've got to do something different. I think that's what he saw, and I think he followed one of our great economists' advice.
And so, with that in mind, will the change in leadership change the direction of the campaign? Because if you look at Reform UK's website at the moment, there's no mention of Nigel Farage on there.
Yeah.
It's still so. Is it going to have to change rapidly, or is the direction going to remain the same?
The direction is going to remain the same. Can I just make one tiny point, and that is that this is a startup. 2 years ago, it wasn't. It was literally. We've just got 620 candidates, right? We're not parachuting, as the Conservative Party have just done, the chairman into a nice, safe seat, right? This is a small group of people who have come together and are doing so. I'm sorry if we haven't got our website up to date.
Oh, no, I'm not criticising.
But my party spent £1.4 million last year, right? In total, the Conservative and Labour Party got 8 million in the last quarter each, right? So I think we're doing damn well because I think we're connecting.
My comment regarding the website was merely that there's a change of leadership. Therefore, is there going to be a change of direction?
I tell you what,
that was a poor example. I apologise.
We at 4 o'clock. 4 p.m. on Friday, when all 620 candidates have got their piece of paper, I'm sure the party will be thinking about other things.
Of course.
But right now, it's getting nominations
Yes.
and getting in front of the media as fast as we can.
Reform UK has emphasised reducing government bureaucracy and promoting individual freedoms. How do you plan to implement these principles within the Hitchin constituency?
I think there's a confusion here, right? And that is that the state has got a member of parliament goes to Westminster to represent the people here. The local authorities, the local councils, they deliver the things on the ground. The state has become so large and so incompetent that the MPs are now acting as social workers, sorting out the cock-ups that the state are dealing with. They are a third arm of social work. What a stupid system we've got ourselves into, right? So I don't see myself sitting here and going, oh, this for Hertfordshire and that for, and this for the High Street of Hitchin. No, that's the local council. What I do see myself is arguing about a motorway, arguing about a hospital, asking about the major infrastructure. Arguing about the environment, how much water's taken out, those kind of issues. But fixing local issues, if your member of parliament is getting down into that minutiae, right, they're not paying attention to the laws that they are passing. Okay.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much for that. I think maybe would you like to spend a couple of minutes to address the audience? You already have done, I think. I'm not sure whether we want to go over it all again, because you've done a very good job already to do that.
I think this audience has already decided that I'm in the bin.
Would you like to explain to them why they should choose you when they vote on the 4th of July?
I would like people to vote for me on the 4th of July because they're voting for a guy with experience. They're not voting for a career politician. If this isn't a job that I need, I'm comfortable, but I'm doing this job out of duty, out of a feeling that this country is broken and I want to fix it. And in order to fix it, I need your help, please. So if you're fed up with a two-party system, please vote for me. My name's Charles Bunker, and it just needs a cross on the 4th of July against my name. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles, for sharing your insights with us today. We appreciate, I'm sure the audience will appreciate your time and commitment to addressing the concerns that they've had. Stuart, to our viewers, you can stay tuned for more interviews as we continue this series. Once again, a massive thank you to James Jury and the guys here at the workshop Hitchin for providing a fantastic venue. Remember, your engagement and questions are vital in this process, so please continue to share your thoughts and comments on this post within our Facebook group, We Love Hitchin, and remember to keep comments and discussions respectful and courteous. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Thanks very much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.